At the turn of 2025 came a wave of political change. Here in Canada, it began on January 6th. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announcing he would be stepping down.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process.
Setting off a Liberal leadership race just months out from a federal election.
We will retaliate. If you hit us, we will hit back.
I can predict what he'll do.
A major Team Canada approach in the United States.
Dollar for dollar tariffs, maximum impact on the United States.
And on March 9th, the Liberal Party elected a new leader.
I will work day and night with one purpose, which is to build a stronger Canada for everyone.
And with it came Canada's top job, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, now at the helm of the nation.
I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
Here is everything you need to know about your new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. The Carney origin story begins here, in the small town of Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories. Population, less than 2,000. This village is as remote as it is rural. And it is here, on March 16, 1965, that Valerie and Robert Carney would welcome a baby boy into the world. Mark was the second youngest of the Carneys' 4 children. Born into a working-class family, both his mother and father were teachers. The importance of education instilled in Mark at a young age. Valerie, Mark's mother, stayed at home to raise him and his 2 siblings, as Richard went on to work as the principal of the local high school, raising a family of 6 on a single government worker's salary. Early on, Mark learned the value of $1. At age 6, the Carney family would move to Edmonton. From 1971 to 1983, they lived in the West End neighborhood of Laurier Heights. The capital of Alberta would be the birthplace of Carney's love for hockey, goaltender for Laurier Heights, and a die-hard Oilers fan. Mark's career would begin here as the young teen set out to earn money to support himself and his family. Paperboy would be the first job listed on what would become known as one of Canada's most impressive CVs. More on that later. These formative years shaped the man Carney says he is today. Speaking to his former employer, the Edmonton Journal, the 24th Prime Minister says his values of integrity, hard work, good judgment, and perseverance are Edmonton characteristics. Decades later, the Carney name would be etched on the front page of the Edmonton Journal, of the business he first worked for. Paperboy turned Prime Minister. The humble beginnings seemed a world away from one of the most notable economic managers. Before we get to that, let's look at Carney's impressive education. Our Prime Minister received an Ivy League education at Harvard University with a bachelor's degree in economics. The former governor of the Bank of Canada would then go on to Oxford University in the UK. Here, he would receive both a master's degree and doctorate in economics. One political commentator says Carney's education is one of the most impressive.
Yes, remember, Carney has Harvard and an Oxford background. Both of these are very renowned institutions.
At Oxford University, Mark would meet British native Diana Fox, and in 1994, the pair would wed. Diana, a fellow economist, would embark on a career focused on environmental and social issues. Mark Carney has at times come under criticism for his wife's professional pursuits.
I know Mark Carney's wife is a really strong environmentalist, has been very active internationally, and that caused some problems for him when he was in the UK. People were digging up things that his wife had done or said about environmental policy and kind of challenged him on that.
Following Oxford, Carney would go on to work for Goldman Sachs, a leading global investment bank, rising through the ranks to become the managing director. Here, he helped post-apartheid South Africa gain access to international bond markets and advised Russia as it navigated a financial crisis in 1998. In 2003, Carney would join the Bank of Canada as deputy governor. A rise through the ranks would see him appointed as the governor of the Bank of Canada, effective February 1st, 2008. That's right, 2008, the year of the global financial crisis. And at the helm of the Bank of Canada, Mark Carney, the governor's tenure would be deemed a successful one by many lead economists.
Carney had done a good job in navigating the Bank of Canada through the financial crisis, and monetary policy definitely played a really important part of getting Canada through that tight spot.
One economist says Carney's direction through the GFC saved the economy.
Canada's economy performed better during the crisis than other countries. And I think to the extent that Mark Carney deserves credit, I would say that he recognized the crisis earlier than most other central banks.
Carney would remain here until 2013. Another venture across the ditch would see him appointed as the 120th governor of the Bank of England. On July 1st, 2013, Mark Carney became the first non-Briton to be appointed to the role.
He was brought in as an international economic rock star, and having successfully led the Bank of Canada through the economic crises of 2008, 9, and 10.
Among the British press, Carney was known as the unreliable boyfriend, a title that stemmed from an MP who was critical of Carney's public approach. The governor of the Bank of England was a role often done in the shadows. Under Carney's reign, it was public-facing.
He was brought in at a time that the United Kingdom was going through Brexit. So he assumed a larger role in the eye of the public than is common for central bankers.
The second came in 2016. At the time of the Brexit referendum, Carney warned Britons that leaving the EU could lead to a recession.
At the Bank of England, he faced a much more difficult task, specifically around Brexit and trying to keep the UK financial system stable during that very difficult period.
Carney took some heat at the time for suggesting that a recession was possible.
And yet, many economists say Carney steered the UK away from a potential economic disaster.
Mark Carney saw Brexit for what it was. It was a bad policy decision.
He's credited with helping steer the country through that crisis.
And to the incredible group of Liberal MPs that we have, you are the voices for your communities, and you are the conscience of our party.
Carney etched out colleague and friend Chrystia Freeland for the top job. You see, Mark is the godfather of Chrysstia's son, rivals in recent times, but friends for decades. Moving forward, all eyes will be on Chrystia Freeland's role and the new cabinet set out by Mark Carney. In a federal election year, Carney will need to set himself apart from Trudeau and the old Liberal brand.
He certainly is going to keep as far away from that Liberal background as possible.
With Carney now at the forefront, what kind of prime minister will he aim to be?
2 months ago, I put up my hand to run for leader because I felt we needed big changes. But big changes guided by strong Canadian values.
As Carney's economic CV takes center stage, what are his political standings? Our Glenn McGregor explains.
Carney is definitely a liberal moderate, a small L liberal moderate. He is much more centrist in his approach, I think, than Justin Trudeau was.
How about the man himself?
My parents were teachers, and they stressed the importance of hard work, of community, and of tolerance.
And where does he stand on social issues?
Very centrist, but he is also at the same time a pretty strong environmentalist. He has, worked on causes that he believes on developing the green economy, helping companies develop environmentally friendly technologies.
Carbon tax Carney. He's just like Justin.
The new prime minister, once labeled carbon tax Carney by Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, made a strong political statement in his first week in office. This, according to professor of political strategy at SFU.
I smiled. The first words out of Carney's mouth was, axe the tax.
My government will immediately remove the consumer carbon tax. Instead, what we'll do is create a system of incentives to reward Canadians for making greener choices.
Our marketing guy says it's a smart move from Carney ahead of the upcoming election.
He is no fool. He realizes as soon as he can say axe the tax, he is now going into direct competition against Poilievre. That was Poilievre's ace in the hole. Well, it's gone now.
The key to winning over voters this election may come in how Carney handles the trade war. And on that front, our experts say Carney's credentials may help guide him through this crisis.
Mark Carney's definitely got that pedigree.
His reputation as an economist, as a banker, probably pretty good, and really maybe his best political asset.
So as an economist, I would say, sort of his track record is probably his greatest asset, and his experience across both the private sector and public sector.
Our leaner cabinet will focus on two priorities in particular. First, protecting Canadian workers and their families in the face of unjustified foreign trade actions.
The trade war and Trump's antics have shifted the political landscape here in Canada. Political and election strategist Meredith says there's a shift away from populist ideologies as patriotism takes center stage, and says Carney needs to strike whilst the iron is hot.
And believe me, right now, Carney has Poilievre and the Conservatives a bit on their back heel. What Carney is going to do now is come in fast and hard before Poilievre and the Conservatives really have a strong chance to regroup.
The time is now ticking with the federal election imminent. Mark Carney up against Pierre Poilievre. Polling and political experts say the pair are neck and neck.
The winner of this one is going to be interesting. If you want to see a snap horse race, get ready. This is going to happen. It's neck and neck between the two.
So how long will Mark Carney remain Prime Minister? Well, that decision remains up to the people of Canada.
Now, I feel like everything in my life has helped prepare me for this moment.